which the CSO has announced today. A short statement in writing is being released on behalf of the Finance Ministry. You will shortly get a copy of that. So what I really have to say is contained in the statement itself. There are some important analysis to be made. The first is that the last 5 quarters had witnessed a downward trend. This marks the reversal of that trend. This additionally indicates that perhaps the impact of 2 very significant structural reforms, demonetization and the GST, is now behind us, and hopefully in the coming quarters we can look for an upwards trajectory. I think the most significant aspect is the fact that this quarter's positive result has been impacted significantly by the growth in manufacturing. And the last important point is that the fixed capital formation being up to 4.7, which actually means that the investment is moving upwards. This is broadly our initial analysis. Hopefully, we should go back to higher growth rates in coming quarters. If you look at the overall picture since May 2014, out of the 13 quarters, we've clocked upwards of 7% 8 times. We've fallen below 6% only once, and that was the last quarter. And therefore, if you at all compared this to any previous figure immediately preceding there, this looks entirely different. But then I think the fact that it marks a reversal, it's been enabled essentially by manufacturing, and that investment has moved up. I think with something which was extremely challenging so far are the key significant features as far as this growth is concerned. So, I think Dr. Adya and maybe Arun wants.
So one question to you: when you look at this trend revival in the growth trend, how do you see the overall fiscal GDP numbers? The range that you had given in the budget also was a good 6.75 to 7.5. Do you feel that you will close the fiscal year with about 7% plus or something?
Well, I think I don't want to get into the prediction game at this moment. But by all trends, the movement should be upwards in the third and the fourth quarter, higher than this.
GST revenue this time did decline, so future revenues, because a lot of rates have come down also.
Well, that's more to do with rates than any other factor. And I think hopefully if it moves up, then the overall annual GDP should move up. So I think let's wait for the actual estimates when they come.
So are you hopeful of meeting the indirect tax revenue considering manufacturing needs?
Well, I think for GST, these are still early days. And I say these early days because transitional credits are being claimed. And therefore, the pattern of how fully established. Hopefully, in the medium and the long term, the revenues from a more efficient system are bound to move up.
No, the only thing on the indirect tax revenue you have to keep in mind is that this year we will get, it's a transitional year, so we will only get 11 months revenue. So we have to keep that in mind when assessing, how we've done overall.
Because the March will come in April. So you have 12 months of expenditure and 11 months of revenue.
सर एग्रीकल्चर की स्थिति थोड़ी सी
देखिए उसमें थोड़ा सा बेस इफेक्ट भी है.
तो आपको लगता है कि चूंकि मानसून अभी कुछ असामान्य हो गया तो पूरा साल के लिए उसके ऊपर असर पड़ सकता है जिसकी वजह से जीडीपी को
अब इसका पैटर्न प्रोडक्शन कितना होता है देखेंगे, लेकिन ये वाला जो आंकड़ा है इसमें बेस इफेक्ट भी लास्ट ईयर का थोड़ा सा.
सर पहले क्वार्टर में जो जीडीपी का आंकड़े आए उसमें ये कहा गया था कि जीएसटी लागू होने से पहले लोगों ने प्रोडक्शन करना लगभग बंद किया था और स्टॉक को डे स्टॉकिंग करना शुरू किया. वो ट्रेंड अब कह सकते हैं खत्म हो गया.
देखिए मैन्युफैक्चरिंग बढ़ा है तो इसका मतलब स्वाभाविक है कि पिछले क्वार्टर में नहीं था मैन्युफैक्चरिंग, इस क्वार्टर में है, तो उससे वो कंक्लूजन थोड़ा स्ट्रेंथन होता है.
बट इट आल्सो हैड फेस्टिवल सीजन लाइक दिवाली, सो
But Diwali, they take into consideration the stocks which are lying there on the pattern.
So regarding private investment, still there is a worry or you think so that it will cover?
No, see, I think that the national income accounts data, the quarterly data, do not allow a breakup of the private and public components. So at this stage, at least I'm not sure how private investment is performing as yet, because the data are aggregated.
One significant point which Mr. Anant has pointed out in his presentation before the press is that this time, while calculating the GDP, the indirect tax number that he has taken is based on certain calculations. Now, he himself was not too sure whether this is the final number, because he says unlike in the previous regime, when people knew what their tax liability was because the regime was well settled, in case of GST, because the government also gave a lot of more time to pay taxes, and we have been postponing our deadline, so actually the taxes which are paid in the quarter of July to September, whether those taxes in indirect tax reflect the correct picture is not sure. So there is an underestimation there, that is what he is saying. So to that extent, the GDP number may go up when it is finally revised.
सर एक सवाल ये कि पहले क्वार्टर के जो नंबर आए तो सरकार की आर्थिक नीति में सवाल उठा है. अब क्या ये स्थिति बदलेगी या नहीं?
जिन्होंने सवाल उठाए थे उनसे पूछो ना.
Sir, a different question here to the CA also. Sir, as food is moving in a certain range as of now. It's also the winter season. Are we still in the comfort zone? Because if you look at the October 3rd decision of that excise cut, that has almost got absorbed in the retail market. Delhi petrol, I think, is just a couple of paisa away from touching the 70 mark. A broad view.
So what is the question?
The question is that are we still in the comfort zone as far as international food price is concerned? Is there any level that we are particularly looking at, so to speak?
See, I think that on the oil price, it's true that oil prices this year are greater than last year by about, so far I expect about 10 to 12%, right? And that's been a little bit unexpected, to be honest. But the key question going forward is, will it remain above 60 for any sustained period of time or not? Because remember, the expectation always is that as these prices rise, shale will kick back into production, which will dampen the effect of oil price increases. In fact, in the last 3 days, oil prices have come down actually. I don't expect oil prices to remain above 60 for any sustained basis. That's, I think, the expectation.
Sir, and these vegetable prices that suddenly they seem to be hardening, and the likely impact on inflation.
And food minister said that not much could be done immediately on that. Do you think this kind of people will have to sustain this kind of cycle?
Yeah. Also, I think on onions, the government has decided to import to bring down the price.
The prices are quite high. Tomato prices, all vegetable prices.
You see, I think what is interesting about agriculture is that we have a situation where on the crop side, especially oil seeds and pulses, prices are a bit depressed. And that's why the government took actions recently, imposed tariffs on these things. But on perishables, prices have gone up. So that's kind of the odd feature this year that non-perishables are down and perishables are up. But again, on the increase in price of perishables, I think the government will take action to ensure that they're kept under check.
सर एक सवाल में इससे अलग क्या है कि वर्चुअल करेंसी बिटकॉइन की प्राइसेस रिकॉर्ड हाई पे गए हैं, इन्वेस्टर्स की संख्या भी काफी ज्यादा बढ़ रही है,
गिरे भी हैं आज,
थोड़ा सा गिरे,
काफी गिरे हैं आज,
लेकिन इसकी कानूनी मान्यता को लेकर
आपका प्रश्न 24 घंटे पुराना है।
सर इसकी प्रश्न ये है कि कानूनी मान्यता को लेकर सरकार ने कमेटी बनाई थी, अब तक कोई फैसला नहीं हुआ, कब तक फैसला नहीं सकता?
कोई रिकमेंडेशन उसकी वर्क हो रही है, लेकिन अभी तक तो पोजीशन स्पष्ट है कि सरकार उसको मान्यता नहीं देती है।
सर हम अपना भी कोई वर्चुअल करेंसी लेके आएंगे, बीच में कई रिपोर्ट आई थी।
Sir, has there been a drop in the Union government expenditure?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. Actually, the reason why it is being shown this quarter compared to the corresponding quarter last year is because last year in this quarter all the arrears were paid for 7th pay commission. So that's the reason why you see comparatively less government expenditure in the second quarter. That is the main reason.
And the other reason, at least from the production side, is that when you talk about government expenditure on like the public administration defense, you don't include interest and subsidy expenditure. So those were high, but they don't count towards GVA growth.
Sir, I just have one question. So with the current 6.3% range, the benefit of low base effect for the third and the fourth quarter and an ongoing recovery, do you still stick to your growth targets which you presented in the survey?
Yeah, pretty much I think that would be the range I think I expect it to come in. And the base effect is especially acute for the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.